so today we'll be talking about why does our heart beat faster during frightening moments. Before we talk about that, let's have a small review. So this is a neuron. And in our bodies, the brain is connected to all the other parts of the bodies, the organs and our arms and legs, through what we call nerves. And these neurons are basically the building blocks of a nerve. So this is a neuron and it has three parts. We have the cell body, which is this part over here, and it's also called the soma, and it has all the parts that a normal cell would have. It has a nucleus, which is this green spot over here, and it would have mitochondria, which can get the energy for the cell and all the other organelles. Then we have dendrites, which are these things over here, and they receive signals from other neurons and pass it on to this neuron. Then the biggest part is over here, and this is the axon. And the axon is the actual nerve. The axon is made up of nerve fibers. So the nerve, as I said, was how signals can get to the nerve for the brain to connect to the other organs. And that's what the axon does. So the axon is the nerve, and it's also very, very long most of the time. This end over here is called the axon terminal, which is connected to other neurons. Now, over here we have these yellow things which we call Schwann cells, and they make up what we call the myelin sheath, which insulates the axon. So, only a myelinated axon is in the brain is called white matter. And in the cell body and the dendrites make up the gray matter of the brain. Okay, so now let's talk about the next thing. And we'll talk the next thing is about the central nervous system and the peripheral. So this is the brain and the spinal cord. And the spinal cord is like a giant main nerve that's like the main nerve of the body. So the brain and the spinal cord make up what we call the central nervous system. Okay, so there'll be many nerves that stretch out of the body that stretch out of the spinal cord. And that's what makes up the peripheral nervous system. Now, say we had a neuron, and there was a neuron over here, and this part over here is the axon, and this black thing is the cell body, and the cell body is sometimes called a ganglion. And say this was our neuron, and it terminates or stops over here, and it connects to a muscle. So that end where it connects is called the synapse. So it synapses onto a muscle. Let's say a muscle on the leg. And now this is coming from the central nervous system and going towards the leg. And then let's say we had another one that comes from the muscle of the leg towards the central nervous system. Now the one that is coming away from the nervous system is called an efferent neuron, and one that's coming towards the nervous system is called an afferent neuron. So that's what an afferent neuron and an efferent neuron. The next part we're going to talk about is the peripheral nervous system. So the peripheral nervous system, as I said, was this yellow part over here, and the peripheral nervous system is divided into two parts: the autonomic nervous system and the somatic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is basically important for the efferent neurons that control parts of the body that are regulated unconsciously. For example, the regulation of digestion, heart rate, and those kind of stuff. That's what the autonomic nervous system is important for. The somatic nervous system is important for efferent and sometimes afferent neurons that control voluntary movements. Mostly, it's movements of the muscles, skeletal muscles. And an example of that would be moving your leg. So it's also important for the senses, because this is all data that you do consciously, regulate consciously. So we'll talk more about the autonomic nervous system, and first let's just review what we already know. So, we have two parts, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, and the peripheral nervous system is divided into two more parts: the autonomic nervous system and the somatic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is now divided into two more parts: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I'll be talking mostly about the sympathetic nervous system. So, let's talk about both the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is important for what we call stress, and it's important for the fight and or flight syndrome, because it's basically important for the idea of when a stressful moment is happening to move away. So before doing when we were like hunter gatherers, a stressful moment usually meant like a tiger was running towards us, and the thing you would do when a tiger is running towards you is you would just run away. So that's basically the movement of your muscles, and that's why stress causes heart rate to increase. But how? Well, let's talk about that. So this is the body, and again we have the central nervous system highlighted, and over some of these ganglions are connected over here, and they're going to, so for example, a signal would come over here and it would go to these ganglions, which are called the sympathetic ganglia, and the signal will come from a part called the amygdala of the brain, and it's like going to detect where the stress is coming from, and it'll send a signal to the hypothalamus, which is another part of the brain, to go and send a signal to the pituitary gland, which is a gland that produces a hormone, and the pituitary gland will basically say, okay, let's go and send a signal to the adrenal gland to produce a hormone. So we'll talk more about these glands and hormones. And the sympathetic ganglions over here are connected to all the organs. So they're connected to the heart, the liver, the gastrointestinal tract, the lungs, the stomach, and the kidneys. So the one that's what we're going to be talking about is the heart. But the signal is going to come from the adrenal glands, which are in the next to the kidneys, and they're these yellow things over here. So the adrenal gland is basically something that produces a hormone, and a hormone is basically like a message. So the adrenal gland produces something called adrenaline, and you probably know adrenaline. It's the most common hormone for stress. And there's also other hormones the adrenal gland produces for stress, like cortisol. So adrenaline is also called epinephrine, and this adrenaline is basically going to go from the adrenal glands and go straight to the heart, and it'll allow the heart rate to increase, and it will do this because the brain doesn't know that the stress could be coming from, say, you got a bad score for your test. It's more likely thinking that something is running towards you and you have to run. So it will cause the heart to increase your blood flow so that you can have more blood for your skeletal muscles, which are the muscles in your legs and arms, so that you can run away. So that's why your heart rate increases when you're during frightening moments. Okay, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and you can watch my thalamus video over here and my pituitary gland video over here. Bye!